The following presentation is designed for educators interested in keeping track of American Indian imagery in American popular culture, as well as for educators who wish to better contextualize both the Indian mascot issue and facilitate discussion for their students on American Indian imagery. With YouTube as a primary source for distribution of this presentation, I've kept to a 10-minute time limit to fit that venue. While the slideshow could take much longer to discuss, educators are encouraged to pause the video on key images or slides with text for classroom purposes. The majority of images are from between 2008 and 2010. To begin with, let's do a quick refresher on the types of American Indian imagery in popular culture: authentic, stereotypical, commercial, institutional, and racist. We have every one of those in the state of Oklahoma, once known as Indian Territory, because so many tribes were already here, like the Kiowa, as well as many tribes who were moved here during the removal period. Before I get started, I'd like to credit one of my mentors, Evans Ray Saitperhudel, who encouraged me to continue the goal of teaching about authentic American Indian issues, showing people the beauty and the power of Indian country, and always keeping in mind the diversity of Native Americans. Yet we rarely see any depictions in popular culture of anything other than stereotypical imagery of the Plains Indians. Students should learn that not all American Indians lived in movable teepees. Some, like the Wichita, built permanent settlements with elaborate grass lodges. And not all Native people danced around the big drum, as the people of the southeastern United States danced around the fire. Educating oneself on Indian country is a long and complicated process. Whether it's what happened during and after the American Civil War in Indian country, or explaining why contemporary African Americans say and do insensitive things toward Native people, such as then Senator Barack Obama, who casually used the word redskin in January 2009, or Republican leader Michael Steele, who used the term honest Injun in January 2010. Lakota journalist Tim Giago wrote that Mr. Obama needed to understand that redskin is an offensive term for Native Americans. However, we must note that while all modern dictionaries call the term offensive, not all Native people consider the term an insult, again demonstrating the multi-sided perspectives necessary on the subject. Contemporary popular culture doesn't seem to mind what offends Native people, such as this contemporary sign in Yale, Oklahoma, especially ironic given the town being the acknowledged home of Olympic athlete Jim Thorpe. Insensitivity is rampant, whether it's a violent anti-Indian image such as this by an opposing team, or the idea that Lieutenant Colonel Custer could be a toy in a Happy Meal, or the name the Sioux Chief would be appropriate for a bathroom drain. In Oklahoma City, just a couple blocks away from the Capitol building, we see this image playing on the trope of cowboys versus Indians. And while this piece of sheet music is from the 1920s, other images that we see throughout popular culture are very current and play on the same stereotypes. The war-bonneted Indian, raising his hand as if he is saying how. Or what I've often called the clip art Indian. This particular profile of a war bonnet wearing Plains Indian is very common. However, it's an image like this that makes us stop and say, what is going on, when we see an Indian with a bottle upturned into his mouth. Then, taking a look further south in the Choctaw Nation, we see the home of the warriors and the war bonnet wearing Native person on the side of the field house. Of course, the Choctaws were not Plains Indians. However, the dominant culture is so strong and the images are so powerful, they permeate our consciousness with regard to American Indian imagery, unless we are part of Indian country. And I just offer this image of our church family as a representation of Native people. This is a people issue, a sentiment the NCAA seemed to understand when it retired most Native American mascots in college athletics. However, on the popular culture level, things have not been going so well. Parks and Recreation, a popular NBC television show, in its opening credits depicts the settlers moving to Pawnee, Indiana. Of course, Pawnee weren't in Indiana. In an early episode, the main character seen here on the left describes to a visitor the popular mural in the Pawnee County Courthouse, depicting the fictitious battle between the settlers and the natives. Not only is a native male, again with a war bonnet, about to be blasted by a cannon, a settler woman is about to decapitate a native woman, and a younger Indian male is pictured dead in a pool of blood, an image so offensive Amy Poehler's character says it had to be covered up, in this case with an Indiana Department of Labor form. In the final season of My Name is Earl, the backstory of a tramp includes being born and growing up on the Cherokee Reservation in North Carolina, obvious because of the war bonnet, before winding up as a streetwalker. Nowhere in popular culture do we see authentic images of Native women. We see Land of Lakes lady. We see a woman like depicted on My Name is Earl. We don't see the women who are representing their families, their tribes, tribal organizations, their state, in very honorable ways. And these are the kinds of things that must change. People are quick to respond to perceived racism towards large vocal ethnic populations, such as the implication Tiger Woods needed to be lynched to be beaten in golf, putting on blackface is okay for a Vogue fashion model, or the Spanish national basketball team was just joking around making Chinese eyes in the Beijing Olympics. But a common racist epithet or negative caricature of American Indians is somehow okay, as long as a majority of non-Indians and or enrolled American Indians believe the image is appropriate. Of course, when a child is brought up in this environment, he thinks it's okay. And so he aspires to the highest level of mascotdom, either putting on some fake regalia, putting on some face paint, fake feather, and a headband, or the most incredible image we've seen lately, Tomahawk from Stillwell, Oklahoma, approved by the school board and the students, many of whom are Native American. How do you justify this to these Native children who are growing up in an environment, a public school system that fosters the caricatures of their own ethnicity? We should be encouraging Native children to embrace their traditions, be proud of who they really are, and not have to face fake Indianness all around them, encouraging them to pursue their educational and academic goals, not confronting them with stereotypes. Ultimately, this must stop. The argument is easy. American Indian mascots should be removed from most non-Indian schools. They perpetuate stereotypes, make light of significant cultural traditions, and encourage anti-Indian imagery. Exceptions can be made, but as an educator, how can we justify the caricature of one race but not any other? As educators, one of our strengths is supposed to be able to change our mind after learning new things. However, a weakness of the situation is that often educators and school boards are manipulated by a few people. This can create dialogue and elevate sensitivity toward racial issues, but a threat is the card-carrying enrolled Native Americans who support and encourage these images. We have to stress authentic education. Every school child should know about Ponca Chief Standing Bear, but they don't. Through his trial, it was determined an Indian is a person. He's an important civil rights leader everyone should know about. Why does this matter? Because we need to understand how to make compromises. That's a very important lesson, not only for adults, but especially children. Look at the Israeli-Palestinian conflict. We don't need to go through the whole history of it, but see how Palestinians compared themselves to American Indians. There is a much larger global context for the issues raised by this question. By discussing this issue, students benefit by being able to understand different perspectives, develop informed choices that benefit the most people possible, and also make them consider the minority who may be marginalized by majority rule in a democracy. A case study in international compromise is the Iraqi flag that is pan-Arabic and represents all people. Compromises on American Indian mascots are possible. We can stop using exaggerated stereotypical caricatures, stop the tomahawk chop and other fake Indian antics, remove the most egregious names, savages and redskins, and prevent schools from creating anti-Indian imagery. Politically correct just means being informed that something hurts somebody else's feelings. When one announces they're being PC, we should immediately recognize they don't believe what they're saying, but know it's offensive to some people, so they phrase it differently. That's the essence of bigotry, not changing one's mind in the face of weighty evidence contrary to one's own opinion. This is not a PC issue, but a potential leadership improvement issue. By examining this issue closely, students can improve and develop intellectual, critical thinking skills involved in contextualization of controversial issues, which will help a leader manage large groups or organizations with divergent interests. While some progress has been made in changing stereotypical images of American Indians in popular culture, the fact is some enrolled Native people like the mascots, no matter how offensive they may be to some others. Please refer to the listed websites for more information on this multi-sided subject.